What's up everyone, Venomous Stare back with Zerg versus Protoss at the highest level. Between two players that are both Korean and both very good, it's Leenock and Zest. Zest is the multi-time GSL champion up here in the top left of Whirlwind. He is very hard to predict because he can cheese very well, but he's more of a macro guy. He plays straight up very well, and he's versatile as far as styles go. He's hard to predict. And those are the kind of players who really have the most longevity, who are truly able to do everything and do it all, and that's what Zest is. He's really versatile. Leenock is his opponent down here in the bottom left of Whirlwind, the Panda Zerg, who is going 3-hash before pool. Leenock has won multiple foreign tournaments. We can see he's going to transfer some drones out here. He's won a DreamHack, he's won a couple of MLGs and an IPL. He actually got second in a GSL. He lost to Leenock. So if you ever ask someone like who knows a lot about StarCraft, like, oh, name all the GSL winners. The GSL is the best Korean tournament if you're new and don't know. You say, hey, name all the GSL winners, and your friend's name, and he's like, oh yeah, Nesty, MVP, Life, and he's going down the list. And after he names a lot of them, one that he might forget, or probably the name that he's going to be most likely to forget, is Jockji, a Terran player who we actually see is still around to this day despite the fact that he won his GSL back in 2011. But Jockji actually defeated Leenock, which is why I'm bringing this up, and Jockji took advantage of Ghost. The Ghost was extremely powerful at this time, a Twilight in the wall-in of Zest, so if Leenock just scouts, he's probably going to see this right now actually, and he does. But the Ghost did absurd damage to massive units, so Terran players would often just tech into these Ghost builds late game where really they would kind of do their bio thing, but then go into Ghost and then be able to eviscerate both Broodlords and Ultras. And of course Infestors get destroyed by EMP. And that's how Jockji beat Leenock essentially. It was a pretty good series though. Zest, it looks as though he's going for a DT drop because he has a Twilight, he's made his Dark Shrine already, and his Robos on the way. He's adding extra gates, but Zest might be in a little trouble here. He stops Leenock from running in, which is nice, but let's look at Leenock's vision. Doesn't see the Dark Shrine. The Dark Shrine's in an interesting spot actually because it's pretty damn close to the ramp. If Leenock had somehow gotten in, it would have been bad, but Warp Prism on the way. And Leenock here is scouting. Very important stuff. Fatal turn away. So sad. The Dark Shrine is right here. Right now, Leenock is seeing... Okay, he's going to look actually. Oh, Robo. Okay, huh. Maybe he's taking a third. Of course, he doesn't have vision of either third. Maybe he's doing a Warp Gate all-in with Warp Prism. You know, he doesn't see this researching, so it's probably not that really popular. Resonating Glaive, 7-gate, Adept all-in with Warp Prism that's getting popular, but doesn't see the Dark Shrine, doesn't know, so that's pretty bad. He is making 3 spores though, so if we go to Leenock's vision, he has guessed right, so to speak, because he has a spore crawler done at every base. So he's either deduced that it's DT, figured out that it's DT drop. But regardless, he has detection, so he should not stay in severe damage initially. And Zest, of course, is using the Warp Prism very well, warps in the DTs right at the front door of Leenock, but right out of his vision as well. And here Zest is going to run into the third sea. Okay, he has a spore, but pan over to the natural. He's just going to Rambo the spore. But here Leenock, wonderful micro, surrounds the spore. And this makes it where whenever Zest right-clicked on the spore to try to burst it down, the DT's AI kind of bugged out because whenever you right-click focus fire on something, it doesn't prioritize units that get in the way at all because you've given them a specific command to strictly focus onto that one thing. So Zest ran in and was right-clicked onto the spore, but Leenock saw the invisible units, saw them coming in essentially, and countered with a nice little micro maneuver there. And despite the fact that obviously the drones couldn't kill the DTs, them saving the spore was huge. Zest is going to do what many Protoss do after a DT drop opener, which is going to double Archon. Double Archon drop. This is very powerful because of the fact that Archons obviously do bonus damage to bio. Everything Zerg that has is bio. and they also do a lot of splash, so if you run around with the Warp Prism and drop Archons behind a mineral line, oftentimes Zerg is relying on Lings. Lings can't get the job done against Archons behind a mineral line. Plain and simple, the Archons are too bulky to be completely surrounded, so this is tricky for Zerg. Oftentimes you see them have to make a few roaches, which they don't want to do. You see this here for Leenock. The last thing Leenock wants to do is invest a bunch of gas into roaches. He would rather be teching up, he'd rather be upgrading, rather, well, be attacking his own hatch, I guess, Kappa. Zest has a third. He has a Mortal Sentry out here. His Mothership Core is patrolling around. He has a handful of gates. Forge on the way. Blink and Immortals too. So this is turning out to be a nice little macro game here after a DT drop opener. And like I said, the DT drop, it's by no means all in. Sometimes you could just brutalize someone if they don't scout it, and even though that Leenock didn't truly scout it, yeah, he saw the Twilight, but he built the Twilight in the freaking wall in. Leenock was still able to kind of figure out what was going on, so that's some great micro there. Wow, juggling the Archons out of the Warp Prism there, smashing the Lings, so good stuff there by Zest. That means that a lot of the Lings that were on the map he doesn't have to worry about now, but of course there are still some over here by this base, the fourth. 2 Archons at the tower, one has 16 kills, one has 17. That's a lot of kills, guys. This is like 2 little Go tanks out here because the DTs themselves are pretty useful too. Leenock has quite a few Overlords. He's already at 190 supply, so he doesn't have to worry about getting supply blocked. Zest has hallucinated some Phoenix, and he sees pretty much everything. That's great stuff. You always want to be hallucinating throughout the game with Phoenix and scouting around, seeing what Zerg has, seeing if they're teching into Spire, which can really be devastating if you get caught off guard by it, or teching into Infestor, which Leenock started to do after Zest scouted. And right here we see some more harass going down. And this is another reason why the Archon harass is so good, is because they have so much health. There's a lot of room for error, and here a Photon Overcharge will be fired up, so Leenock, he'll consider running away, but with Ravagers and Banes here, he doesn't really have to fear too much, but at the same time, Zest can move his army up here. Legs, which will be extremely valuable, and is also called Charge, is halfway done. +1 is also done. If we go to upgrades, Zest has a little bit of a disadvantage, but a little bit of an engagement is going to occur. Both Archons die. And those were the money Archons with all the kills, in case you were curious. And quite a bit actually dies there, so Zest is in a little bit of trouble potentially as Leenock continues to aggress, but he has this fourth, he has 2 Archons. I think he'll be able to stabilize. But with this many Lings coming up, he really has to be worried about getting splash. It can be difficult, even with a lot of Archons. Once you get about 6, though, they really pack a wallop. Of course, they're very bulky, so it's hard for Archons to really micro against Ravagers, especially when Lings are in the equation sometimes. This Warp Prism, though, will help alleviate that. Zest has very crisp micro. But 16 workers died here at the third. And this is the problem with spawning close as Zerg. Is because, look at this, the rush distance from this base up here is so short. And Corrosive Bile come down, but a nice little pull back there, a little stutter step micro that Eder and James of the NFL would be proud of from Zest. But the Banes come down, and whenever Banes crash through and really destroy the initial units that you're using to tank, it can really be brutal if Zerg gets through past your meat shield and gets their valuable Lings with upgrades onto your valuable pretty units like the Immortals and the Archons. So here a little bit of a recall is going to occur. It's a very small recall, and it traveled a very short distance. But Ravager shots, the Corrosive Bile are going to come down on this high ground. Adrenal Glands are being researched for Leenock. +3 attack is on the way. And this is a very aggressive Zerg style where we see a big focus on Lings. Sometimes you see this incorporated with drops. More often you see counterattacks like this. With Adrenal Glands and plus attack upgrades, it's just brutal to deal with this Protoss. And you can snipe bases very well. And Leenock's actually going to go for probes here. He kills quite a few probes. Nice move there from Leenock. And once he gets +2 in Adrenal Glands, he might actually be able to just kip up here, smash the base, and run away. The units tab indicates that the Protoss player is behind in workers. And this gateway photon cannon combo is valuable. This is like the Heart of the Swarm classic, this 2 pylon, 2 gate cannon combo. Of course, we see so much less of this in Legacy of the Void because of Corrosive Bile. If you drop a few Corrosive Bile like right here, it's going to be really bad for the Protoss. Essentially, in Heart of the Swarm, this cutesy little formation was almost impenetrable for Zerg in many instances, because when accompanied with Force Field, remember, there's no Ravagers, and Lings can't get to it, there's no Corrosive Bile. So this little combo that Protoss players would use, the SimCity of Gate, Pylon, with the cannon tucked away against the Nexus, was very potent. But here's some Banes, and Lings are going to run in as an Archon's being morphed, and the Archon is extremely good against Lings and Banes, but it does die as it took shots. A lot of the Protoss army was clumped, and Leenock showing that he has a commitment to killing workers as he produces Ultras. So Leenock has 2 Ultras, 2 more on the way, chitinous plating on the way. Of course, chitinous plating will be very good because he hasn't even started melee upgrades. That's part of why he's been able to make so many units all game, is because he's just been upgrading off of 1 Evo, and he's kind of saying, okay, yeah, I have the 1 Evo, but I'm going to compensate by going quick Ultra and getting, of course, the chitinous plating, which everyone gets, but it is very important to note in this specific build. DT coming out, it is poised to harass the space, and Banes are coming out here. Look at this Archon. Ooh, he's on patrol. Boom! And that Archon is a badass as he mows down Banes. But here we go, an engagement near the base of the 3rd, and the Zerg is going to run up here and aggress onto the 4th base of Zest. A big engagement here at the base of the ramp as Ling, Bane, and Fester is going to attack. Potentially might go up the ramp, but Leenock's kind of going into a bunch of different places at once and doing pretty well in each of them, as we see actually a lot of DTs coming up, and Leenock doesn't have any detection. So this has actually turned really bad as Leenock lost his detection. A lot of that's because some of his army went up here, some of it fought over here, and now he's forced to retreat. And then if you look back at the fight, a lot of his army forced up into this natural ramp and was wasted trying to kill these buildings, and more Lings are going to come down. At this point, Zest is wary of this. Protoss players who are very good understand that Zergs who run in repeatedly like this are going to be prone to keep doing so. The same rule applies to people who like to drop a lot, and it is specifically important to note that players who play like that or do things like that will often just attack the same locations over and over. So it would be nice to see Zest maybe just completely wall this little side right here with a pylon cannon gate. It looks like he's trying to do that, as well as repower that 1 cannon. And Zest is in a bit of an awkward position because he really wants to pump Immortals, but Immortals really suck against Lings. At the same time, Archons are very good, but he really doesn't have the money to make Archon Immortal. That's just an absurdly expensive army. And a Photon Overcharge goes down on the Pylon, which does a little bit of work, but with such good upgrades on these Lings, remember, Zergling attack speed, aka adrenal glands, has been upgraded. So they just kill buildings so fast. And Zest is in this awkward position where even if he knows that he's going to be harassed at that location, he does have to consider that, yeah, he has +3 and adrenal glands. So even if I make cannons and stuff, he can just bull true it if he makes enough Lings. And if we look at income, Leenock has a ton of drones, 62. Now in truth, that isn't really a ton, like 80 or 90, but it is a solid economy. And it is more than his opponent. When you consider all the DT harass, it's a pretty damn good drone count. The DT and the Archon harass. They are even now in workers. So watch the Leenock cam. He's looking around. The tricky part is he kind of wants to engage with this Ultra army. He's teching into Broodlord, but he's in this weird spot where he knows that if he takes a bad engagement, the rush distance is really short and he can't afford to replenish. And as far as Zest Vision goes, once again he's defending this harass. Now this harass is very irritating, but at this point it's just predictable, because Leenock is literally just trying the exact same maneuver like 6 times in a row. Like Lings and Bans from this location into the mineral line, Lings and Bans, and it's just, yeah, he has the upgrades which are great and quintessential for playing that style, but even if you play that style and have the upgrades for it, the Protoss is going to be able to figure out where you're going to counterattack if you do it at the same damn place. Leenock is venturing out with his Lings to see the damage, because if Zest has this base and there's cannons and he has maybe this one too coming up, Leenock would just be like, oh well shit, I have to attack now or die. But he sees, okay, both of these bases are vacant. He gets swiped by a DT and sees, oh crap, he's trying to take top right. This is really tricky as Zerg, because once a cannon, like once again he has a little Heart of the Swarm SimCity established, which just is great. I love to see this. Because what does this mean, this little hot SimCity? It means it can't be dicked with by Lings. And it also means it can be reinforced because of the 2 pylons. So these 2 little gateways, of course, are also valuable because once you continue to expand, obviously your income will continue to rise. So you have to keep adding gates. So instead of just making 20 gateways in his main, he's actually parceling them out at his bases, which there's really no reason not to do this. Leenock is maxed on Broodlords, and a revelation comes out and sees the entire Zerg Death Army. So Zest has been teching well, the exact same thing for Leenock, and once again he's just going to run into pre-fire basically. Broodlords are attacking this virtually mined out base. The only valuable thing here is 2 Immortals, the Gas Geysers, and the Stargate. Stargate's really important because Tempests are the hard counter to Broods. Zest has a huge army, but it's mostly Archons, and Fungal Growth really can just devastate that. A little bit of a Link counterattack is going to be attempted, but Archons are up there. Zest will just sacrifice this base and potentially just counterattack, as he knows he's not really going to have much luck trying to run under Broodlords with the Mortal Archon when the Zerg has Fungal. A random observer leaves the game, which I bet was annoying whenever the pro gamers were playing. But Zest is going to attack this base down here. Notice he queues up attack commands so he doesn't have to babysit his army. Ultras are going to clean up this base of the Protoss player, and Lings are just ravaging all these probes. That's a big deal because he really wants the ability to make buildings out in the Dick Farm. Leenock is killing the natural of the Protoss player Zest. Leenock is ahead in supply. He does have a very good army, and probably the better army, but probably the slower army too. Drones are being evacuated for Leenock, and he's running up to top right with Ultras. Notice this top right has lived throughout all the Ling harass. Big freaking deal. Once the Ultras come up here, it's going to be very, very rough. Broodlords are continuing to wreak havoc on Zest. Remember, without a Cyber Core, Zest can only make DT and Zealots. Both are not very good against the Ultralisk, but then again, what is from the gateway? And at this point, Leenock has killed almost everything. But at the same time, the Protoss player is smashing through with Immortals. Lots of kills on these guys. Archon and Immortal ravaging the main base of Leenock. Same unit composition, tearing apart the third. And Leenock might actually be in risk of running out of buildings here, because he really just has this one. And this is a crazy base trade. A Tempest is attacking here. A DT is attacking the bottom side, but the Zerg is all over the top left, and this is a very peculiar thing. The Oracle's running around, and the Assimilator is being attacked. We really need to go to structures here. 1 Spore, 1 Extractor, and he has the 2 Stargates here, the Nexus, the Pylons, the Forge. So this is going to be very close here. The Assimilator dies. At this point, it's just the Spore, the lone Spore. The 2 Stargates, of course, are about to die. One of them does go down. The Nexus and Forge are in peril. This is going to be pretty close. If we go to units, there is a probe out on the map. It can build shit. A Nexus in the corner. Most of the drones are over here. If we just spam click on drones, yeah, they're all under there basically, I guess. Right? Yeah, those are changelings. Broodlords do have the advantage against this army, minus the Tempest. Zest has to be very careful, but he knows that the base is up here. He doesn't have any other choice. The Immortals are powering forward, but he doesn't have enough anti-air. The Tempest gets... Oh! Big flank with lots of Archons. He might have enough anti-air, in fact. The Broodlords are just going to kite back, though. All the Immortals are devastating the Ultras, and holy crap, that Archon flank was insane. I didn't even see that. as I thought that he just had that meager force, but he came around the back with the Archons, but it was a very close fight, and at this point there are only 2 Archons and there's no Warp Prism. If Zest just had a Warp Prism, he could do crazy hot pickup micro. Leenock's vision, he doesn't see the final base because it's a Nexus. It's not going to be revealed. Both players have zeroed out of, or not zeroed out, but basically aren't mining. Leenock is barely mining with just a handful of workers. And he has a lot of gas. Zest is in this really bizarre position where he is kind of aware of the fact that he is on the bad end of a base trade, so he's going to try to walk around, say, I'm going to kill all the buildings, so if I do manage to kill this hatch, I just insta-win. Because when you base trade someone, one of the best ways to try to guarantee your victory is make it where the last crucial structure is quite truly the last crucial structure. You don't want to go balls deep with everything you have to kill this hatch and then be like, oh shit, he had an assimilator, lol, and just lose the game. And at this point, if we go to the Structures tab, it's this bizarro little contingency up here for Zest. He has a little bit of money. If we look at the units of Leenock, well, it is a motley crew as well. Some Vipers. Now these Vipers are kind of worth their weight in gold, but oddly they can't really do their consume ability because he can't risk the health. Hallucinated Archon here, and another flank, but look at this beautiful wall here with these changelings, and oh my gosh, that completely screwed up everything that was trying to happen for Zest, and Zest is going to do a little bit of attacking here, but at the same time there's just not enough anti-air. The Immortals were just trying to bull true on to this hatch, but at the same time, God, this little changeling wall was straight brilliant. So if you're not aware of what was going on, changelings can be put in hold position, and whenever you try to just attack something similar to the way that the drones protected the spore, it screws up the AI, and the units that you attack move just crowd surf. So once again we saw a beautiful flank being attempted from this ramp, which oddly enough was the same location that Leenock did all those counterattacks. But Leenock was ready for it. He used his Overseers, taking advantage of every little unit that he had. Vipers, Overseers, every little unit. And he did a little SimCity trick, and that basically won him the game. Because with Archon Immortal, the entire crux of that composition is just trying to sweep in and get everything. At this point, a couple Stalkers have been made, and there's no mining going on, so the last engagement here, but the Broodlords are going to get sniped! As Leenock's going to get caught with his pants down. I don't think he was expecting any Stalkers, and boom, look at that! Zest has Blink, that might be it! Because Zest can just walk around, and even with that great micro, Zest hit a little Action Jackson up here, and was able to get a few Stalkers. Blinding Cloud going down, but it didn't matter. The Vipers did not have enough energy. Ling's coming out here, and Zest is very good at Blink, and he doesn't even really have to be good at Blink because there is nothing there, and holy crap, that was a good game. Zest was consistently defending counterattacks over here, and oddly enough, they base traded, and Leenock took this weird little base that he was always attacking, and then Zest made a base in his old main, and killed Leenock with a few Stalkers. I'm going to be casting games 2 and potentially 3, depending on how Leenock does, of this series. You don't want to miss it. That was crazy. The subsequent games might be even better, so subscribe for more, click the little bell notification, and leave the video a like rating.